That's it.
Let me just tell you where I am right now. I've got 2 layers of garboard planks all made and put in position. They just fastened down with very, very few fastenings. 2 layers of bottom planking on it. And like I say, it's just tacked together right now with a couple of little screws, like sheetrock screws with washers on them and things. So it's cooperating. And the next thing I'm going to do is make the next plank up, because I wanted to make sure that I got this lap angle cut into this garboard plank and all completely done before I went on. And the only way for me to do that was to fit the next plank to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the next plank. Now I've made the next plank on the other side, the first broadstrake, from bow to stern in 2 pieces with 2 scarfs, and I clamped them together, and that piece is also done. So now what I'm going to do is show you how I went about it. Now the scarf is the key to it here. You have to scarf the 2 pieces together on the boat, because if you didn't, you'd have them like really not in the right relationship to each other, and you'd be a mess. So you wouldn't want to do that. So what we have to do is take 2 individual patterns and then make the 2 pieces and then put them on the boat and clamp the scarf together on the boat. That's what we're going to do. So that's our next move, is to make a pattern of that next plank and then make that next plank. For the pattern of this plank, I'm using a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and I've already cut a little curvature into it, so it kind of matches up to the curvature of the garboard strake as it is right now, because I wanted to fit it up as closely as possible, very, very quickly really, but I wanted to make sure that I did it, because it enables me to see whether or not the edge of that pattern is up, say, 1/4 of an inch off of the framing, because I don't want it to bear down tightly against the framing, because if it did, it would be edge set a little bit, and that wouldn't help me at all. So basically what I want it to do is rise up on that inboard edge and be bearing down on the outboard edge, and that's what I've got right now. Now I'm going to use the poor man's method here of spiling it. Instead of using a pair of dividers and making swings onto my pattern and then having to make 2 swings back and everything like that, that's really kind of difficult in a situation like this, and I seldomly do it anyhow. I'm using a block technique. It's kind of real cheap and dirty, but it's quick and it's easy and it's accurate. So I'm using my rule here. It's 5/8 of an inch wide, and I'm just comparing it to the edge of the garboard, or lining it up with the edge of the garboard and putting a pencil mark onto my pattern. Let's see, it's going to get to here and 6 inches back. I've taken the pattern from the boat and put it on top of the piece of lumber that I'm going to use, and this is a real special piece of lumber. I'll show you that in a bit, but what I'm going to do now is spile the shape of it that I've put onto the pattern onto that piece of wood. Now there's all kinds of techniques for doing this. One of them is a compass technique, and I've done it that way, but I don't prefer it. I'd rather use a block technique, something like this. Basically what I've done is I used my rule, like I've shown you, and spiled 5/8 of an inch from where I'm trying to get to, and then the lap is 1 inch. So I need to put 1 5/8 on there from that mark in order to make this thing work out just exactly right. So what I'm going to do is I take a little piece of wood that's 1 5/8 long, and I place it on the mark like so, and then I look straight down at it just like I did when I was taking the pattern and make a mark on the wood. And I'm just going to move up and do it on every single one of them just like this, and they all line up with each other or very closely. But the accuracy of this doesn't have to be exactly perfect, because with these wide plank lapstrake boats, you've got all kinds of opportunities to tune up the shape of the plank after you've sawn it. So it really isn't important that it be exactly perfect. And I could tell you this also, nothing in the world is perfect, so this isn't going to be perfect either, but it's going to be good. That's what it's going to be. Now Joe and I are stretching a batten through some nails that I put along those marks, So we're going to put a pencil line through those marks and then pull the nails, and we're able to go over to the bandsaw and cut. All right, now we're going to tip it on edge to do this up here because we won't be able to bend it that much. Just like that. Okay, that's it. Just like that. Now that I've got the plank back on the bench, I've got an inside curvature right here, and I've just cut it with the bandsaw, and it's not perfect. There's no way to cut that inside curvature and have it come out perfect, so I knew that right up front, so I know I have to plane it. And I'm just going to use a block plane. Even though the block plane has a straight bottom, I just push the blade out a little bit and adjust it properly and cope with it a little bit. And it's a little bit difficult, but it really isn't any big deal. And you're able to plane that inside curvature right to that line, split that line right in half. All right, now let's take it over to the boat one time. You and me. All right. Okay, let's go back to the bench again with it now. What I'm doing right now is drawing a line on the very top edge of the plank, and it's 1/4 of an inch from the inboard side of it. And then I've got an inch line drawn on the plank already on the outboard side of the plank. And the idea here is to knock most of that material off of there, to limber the plank up, so it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to bend the plank on. Now I've already tapered this plank from 3/4 of an inch down to 9/16 of an inch. So, I'm sorry, from 5/8 of an inch down to 9/16 of an inch. So what I'm trying to do is get the plank to start thinning up. The 2 garboards went on there, 2 layers of 3/8, so I got 3/4. Then I tapered that down to 5/8 of an inch, and now I'm tapering it from 5/8 of an inch down to 9/16. And then basically what's going to happen is I'm going to taper the next plank from 9/16 down to 1/2 inch, and basically it's going to be 1/2 inch planked up from there. So the idea is to get it more limber, a little bit lighter, higher on the boat, and like I say, the limberness is what I'm after, because that makes it easier for me to build the boat. Now, considering that I have to hold this plank still when I do this work, I'm just going to weight it down with some lead weights here, because that seems to me to be the easiest way to go about it. I don't have to run down one end or arrange a bench stop that might be in my way for some other matter or anything like that. I don't have to use a clamp or anything. I just transfer a few lead weights to it, and it holds it nice and still. And then I'm going to knock most of this material right off with electric plane. Traditionally, this would have been done with a draw knife, removing the bulk of the material. Like, you wouldn't start off with a plane, because the plane would have to be adjusted very, very deeply, and that's not the way they did it. They took a draw knife and they pulled most of the material off like that, and you had to be pretty careful, because if you could get past the line real quickly and the grains could pull you down, you have to be able to draw a knife in both directions, and you know, there's a lot to it, and it requires some strength. And beside that, with a draw knife, that's pulling the plank all over the place. I wouldn't be able to hold it down with a few lead weights like that. You'd have to clamp the plank down with bench dogs. That's not what we're doing here. For me, I'm sticking with the electric plane. It's quick and easy. I am going to have to tune it up with a hand plane after, just a little block plane, and I'm kind of keeping track of where that blade is. I don't have the blade over both of the lines at the same time. I've only got the blade over one line at a time, and then maybe make a couple of passes down the middle and flatten it out real nice, and there it is done. Now it's time to cut the scoffs on the 2 ends of these planks right here, and I've got them laid out to be 6 inches long. Now we're going to use the electric plane like I do on so many other things to remove most of the material, because it's fast and easy, and there just is no other way to go about it today. I plane into the grain with the electric plane, and you can see that it just cuts the material away and blows it off onto the floor really, really nice. So Now I've picked up a little block plane and I'm tuning this scarf up by hand. Now I want to tune it right down till the edge of it is kind of nice and pointed, and it's got to be nice and flat across and smooth. And you can notice that I'm planing up into the grain just like I was with the electric plane, because it does. It pulls the blade down against the surface as you're planing. The only requirement here is that you have a very sharp blade, because otherwise the blade would just want to stop the plane. But this works out really, really well for me, especially with softer wood like this. It really, really works good. Now you can see that the scarf doesn't look like it runs out square across the plank. And it doesn't, because the plank's not the same thickness on both edges. One edge of it is 5/8 of an inch thick, and the other edge of it is 9/16 of an inch thick. So it runs out a little bit short on one side and long on the other side. Now it tapers right out on the very end to the same thickness, and the scarf is nice and flat. I've checked that in a number of ways, by sighting and by setting the block plane on there to see if it rocks or anything like that. But you know, it's so flexible, the material, it doesn't have to be perfectly flat anyhow. That's it. That's it. Let's give this scarf a quick fit together here and just see how it looks now. I'm going to drag it up into position and then force it down, and it does fit kind of nice. I could probably touch it up a tiny little bit, but if I'm going to touch it up at all, it'd have to be now, because once I get it glued together on the boat, there'll be no touching it up after that. So I think I will take just a tiny little bit off of this plank right up in here, and it'll just make it grayed out properly. It actually fits quite nicely, but I'm just going to change it a tiny little bit. That's better. That looks good. Like that, like that. Now I'm moving our two pieces of plank over to the boat, and you can see that I've arranged these little blocks on the frames right there. They're like an extra set of hands for me, actually. It kind of holds that end of the plank up while I'm clamping the scarf together. Basically what I've done here is I've clamped down the after section first, and then I've overlaid the forward section, the scarf, over it, and applied a clamp right there and drawn it down nice and tight there. And it's just a dry run, really. And then I've pushed the forward section into place, and that does arrange right there the two planks properly to each other. Now, if I didn't arrange that on the boat like that, like I said, they wouldn't glue up in the proper relativity to each other. So this is the way we have to do it. When we glue two pieces together like this, especially this width, they're not edge settable. There's nothing you can do for it if you make a mistake here. So we're going to be very careful and get them glued together properly. Now I'm just going to quickly place a piece of plastic in between here so that we don't glue this plank down to the other plank or down to the molds or anything else. We just want to isolate it with a piece of plastic like that. We're using TotalBoat 2-to-1 High Performance Epoxy glue today, and it works equally as well as the 5-to-1, and it has a little bit less amine blush. It's a little bit thinner, so it's easier to pump in the winter time here, and we're going to use equal amount of pumps out of each one. One pump of the glue or the resin, and one pump of the hardener. And there, now that one worked out just right. Now while that one's rising, we're going to go back to our hardener, get another pump of hardener. We don't need much here, just another couple pumps and we should be fine. You want enough so that you can get it mixed up in the bottom of your little mixing cup here. And like I've said many times, you can't mix it too aggressively. The more you mix, the better off you are. And you just want to mix around the edges and around in the middle. All right, we're all set there. I'm using a 2-inch chip brush here, and I cut the bristles about half the length that they should be. It makes it easier for me to move the glue around in these temperatures. Now, I want to cover both surfaces, the one right here on the bench and the one on the boat, and make sure that I've got it spread around and I can watch it actually soak right in. If it's deficient anywhere, I can put a little bit more on there or do whatever I want to that surface. You know, that glue is not real thick. It soaks into that material really, really nicely. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to let that surface suck up that glue for quite some time before I go on to putting any thickened product on there. Now I'm going to add some thickener to the glue, and as I mix it in, I can see whether or not I have enough in there. I don't want to put too much in to start, so what I'll do is mix that in and then add a little bit more and mix that in, and once I think I've got it thick enough or just about the right consistency, something I'm used to seeing really, because there's really no rule of thumb on exactly how thick it should be or anything else. It's just so it doesn't run on you or anything like that. What I'm going to do now is take it over to the scarfs and use the same brush that I was using to apply the glue before and just spread some out on there. Now I can't get exactly the right amount everywhere, so I'll pick up a little tooth trowel, and the tooth trowel makes it so that you get exactly the same amount everywhere. Now that we've got glue on both the surfaces, I can take that forward piece over and put it in position. Where is my X? Here it is. Right down here. Something like that. Now I'm going to clamp it down, but I'm going to use a block of wood on top of it to spread the load throughout that whole scarf so that it spreads it all the way around and clamps it all the way down everywhere. That way it's not like loose in one spot and tight in another spot. Alright, now I'm just going to pull down on this end. Now I've got it right where I want it, right there, right now, and I'm going to clamp it into position forward here. Like that. Okay, so there's our second broadstrake glued together at the scarf and ready to work with a little bit more. You can see that I have to tune the shape of it up through that scarf a little bit, and I'll plane the scarf down nice and flat, and it'll just be beautiful. We're ready to go on to working with our bottom at this point, and we'll put these two planks away for a little while.